Welcome to Hopeful Moments 1, where real and inspiring stories are shared. Today, we will listen to an emotional story that unveils the profound consequences of an affair. This is not just a tale of marital betrayal but a deep exploration of how wrong decisions can ripple through the lives of everyone involved, affecting not only the main characters but also those around them. Throughout this journey, we will face difficult questions about morality, personal responsibility, and the true meaning of family. Can deception ever be forgiven? How does one overcome the painful consequences of the past? And can family bonds be reconciled even after deep wounds? What makes today's story even more compelling is an unexpected twist. The ex-wife of the man, now divorced, reaches out to the female protagonist. Not only does she want to reveal the truth about the past, but she also wishes to introduce her children to their half-sibling, opening a brand new and surprising chapter for the entire family. This event challenges us to rethink our traditional definitions of family and kinship. If you find this story both dramatic and filled with valuable lessons on love, responsibility, and forgiveness, support us by hitting the like button, sharing this story, and subscribing to the channel so you don't miss upcoming meaningful content. Together, we will explore and learn from the unforgettable moments of life. A few years ago, when I was still 26, full of passion and without a single doubt about romance, I plunged headfirst into a passionate relationship with a 42-year-old man. He was captivating in the way that only an experienced man could be, mature, sophisticated, and with words so mesmerizing that they made me believe I was the only one he ever wanted to be with. In the beginning, everything felt like a dream. We had sweet dates, electrifying touches, and intimate moments that convinced me I had found the right person. In the small world I had created for myself, he was the perfect man, the fate I had been waiting for. But then, something unsettled me, a vague feeling, an unshakable doubt. He never spoke about his family, never mentioned past relationships. Every time I curiously asked, he would only smile faintly, dodge the question, or skillfully change the subject. One day, driven by the need to know more about the man I was falling for, I searched for him on social media. And then I saw them, warm photos of his children, kids with sparkling eyes and innocent smiles, snapshots of a seemingly simple family life that carried a harsh truth. But what disturbed me the most wasn't the children, it was the complete absence of his wife. There were no pictures, no mentions, no signs of a woman who should have been part of that family portrait. That made me wonder, what was he hiding? Or was he trying to create a perfect version of his family, one where he was the center, yet missing the most crucial half? At that time, I convinced myself that maybe he was truly lonely in his marriage. Maybe what I was seeing wasn't deception but a man trying to escape a life he no longer wanted to be part of. I wanted to believe that. And I was wrong. Less than a month into our relationship, I was forced to confront a painful truth: he had a family. That truth didn't come from an honest confession but from a shocking revelation that felt like being thrown into an abyss. My heart trembled as I faced something I had never expected. The sweet moments I had believed were real turned out to be just fragments of a picture I had never fully seen. When I confronted him, hoping it was all a misunderstanding, he didn't panic or show remorse. Instead, he calmly reassured me, as if this was just a minor detail, not worth my concern. "My marriage only exists on paper," he said in a light, indifferent tone, as if that bond meant nothing. According to him, he and his wife had long ceased to be husband and wife in the true sense. They were just two strangers living under the same roof, maintaining their marriage more out of obligation than love. He claimed they stayed together for practical reasons, for financial security, for their shared business, and most importantly, for their children, whom he didn't want to grow up in a broken home. He told me that one day, when the kids were older, things would be easier, and he would finally be free to live the life he truly desired. At that moment, I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe he was trapped in a loveless marriage, that I wasn't the third party ruining a happy family. I wanted to believe my presence in his life wasn't a mistake but something he truly longed for. But even as I comforted myself with those thoughts, a deep part of me couldn't shake off the unease. If their marriage was only for show, why was he still hiding it? And more importantly, if he had truly fallen out of love, why was he still there? Not only were they bound together in marriage, but they also co-owned a business, a seemingly solid financial partnership. Yet, when I took a closer look at how their business operated, the imbalance between their roles became increasingly apparent. This was just the beginning of a truth that would unfold in ways I never could have imagined. The wife was the center of everything. She not only managed the business but also directly oversaw every crucial aspect, from business strategy to daily operations. Under her leadership, the company ran smoothly and continued to grow. She was the creator, the decision-maker, the very soul of the entire system. In contrast, the husband seemed to stand on the sidelines. His role was mostly limited to passively managing finances, as if he was merely providing resources rather than actively participating in the company's operation and growth. He did not make critical decisions, nor did he intervene in long-term strategies. If the business were a ship, she was the one steering it, while he was merely supplying the fuel to keep it running. This division of roles was not just a reflection of their professional relationship but also an indication of their marriage dynamic. Was this truly an equal partnership, or was it a structure where one person held all the control while the other merely played a supporting role? Or perhaps this arrangement was what allowed them to maintain stability, even when the emotional connection between them had long faded? The division of work was not just a boundary in how they managed their business, it was also a mirror reflecting the reality of their marriage. A marriage that existed in name only, where two people shared responsibilities but had no real emotional connection. It was like a perfectly staged play for outsiders to see, but behind the curtains, they were nothing more than strangers living under the same roof. I had seen the signs. Deep down, I knew something was not right, that the story he told me about a marriage that only existed on paper might not be entirely true. But instead of trusting my instincts, I chose to believe his words, or rather, I forced myself to believe them. At that time, I was in my early 20s, an age when people easily mistake intense emotions for true love. I threw myself into this passion like a moth drawn to a dazzling flame, unaware of the fire's scorching heat. He had an inexplicable charm, a kind of invisible magic that was utterly captivating. Every word he spoke, every gesture, every look had a pull that I couldn't resist. When I was with him, I felt special, as if the world only revolved around the two of us and everything else faded into the background. But it was all an illusion. A beautiful yet dangerous illusion. And I, in my naivety and blindness, was willing to dive in without hesitation. Every moment with him felt like stepping into a world where only pure happiness existed, a world I believed only he could give me. He made me feel like I was unique, like I was the only one he cherished. That feeling was like an intoxicating sweetness, luring me in, making me surrender to it without once looking back. But now, with distance and time, I see things more clearly. I realized that the warning signs had always been there from the very beginning, I had just chosen to ignore them. Perhaps I should have stopped before it was too late, but my young heart had been swept away by a whirlwind of passion, unable to distinguish between reality and illusion. I was drawn to him not just by his sweet words but also by his tenderness, the passionate moments we shared, and the journeys he took me on, like stepping into a vividly romantic novel. But the price of that infatuation was losing myself. I let him lead me, let my emotions take control, let those sweet moments cloud my judgment. His charm was like a powerful wave, strong, sweeping everything away, including my sense of caution. By the time I realized it, I was already too far from the shore, with no way back. And after everything, all that remained was deep regret for the time when my innocence had blinded me, preventing me from seeing what lay ahead. 1 year after stepping into this relationship, an event occurred, something I should have foreseen. But even when it happened, I still felt as if my world was collapsing beneath me. I was pregnant. When I saw the 2 red lines appear on the test, my hands trembled uncontrollably, my heart pounded so hard that I could almost hear its echo in my chest. In that moment, my mind went completely blank. I had feared this possibility before but always reassured myself that I was careful enough to avoid such a situation. Yet now, reality was staring me in the face, leaving me no room to escape. A vague fear crept into me, like a cold wind sweeping through my chest. I knew this would bring unimaginable consequences, criticism, judgmental stares, invisible yet overwhelming pressures. I had no idea how I would face him, nor what awaited me in the future. But amidst the panic, a strange emotion emerged, a small, fragile happiness that caught me off guard. I was carrying the child of the man I had loved so fiercely. Though my rational mind warned me that this was not meant to happen, my heart could not deny the deep bond forming within me. Amid the emotional storm, I suddenly realized that from this moment on, my life would never be the same again. I had always been someone who made careful decisions, who thought through every action. I understood the consequences of irresponsibility, that a single reckless moment could lead to wounds that would never heal. I had believed I was strong enough to control my emotions, to never lose myself in a relationship without clarity. But then, he appeared. And I was wrong. His allure was like a powerful storm, sweeping away every principle I had ever held on to. There was something about him, a blend of experience, power, and tenderness, that made me completely lose my senses. When I was with him, I was no longer myself. I was no longer the cautious girl who carefully calculated every step, but someone willing to let go, to drown in his embrace without a care for tomorrow. I thought I was still in control, but in reality, I was only deceiving myself. I believed I was smart enough to recognize my limits, but in the end, I was just a moth drawn to a dazzling light, not realizing it was the very fire that would consume me. I knew that what he wanted me to do might be a mistake, yet I still nodded. I knew I was gambling with my own future, yet I foolishly plunged forward. And then, when everything spun out of control, I stood amidst the stark reality, left only with the shattered fragments of regret. That blindness had made me lose myself. I had given away too much without keeping an escape route, only to realize, when I finally looked back, that I had gone too far down a road with no end. I had let my emotions take the lead, believing that loving with all my heart was something beautiful, without ever considering that some loves, no matter how passionate, only lead to dead ends. I once believed I loved him, or perhaps, it was just a belief I created to mask my own weakness. He wasn't just an attractive man, he was the first person who ever made me feel truly special, in a way no one else ever had. He opened up a world before my eyes, a world so alluring, where I was no longer an ordinary girl, but someone who was loved, desired, cherished, even if only in fleeting, secret moments. I closed my eyes and convinced myself this was love, that this small world of ours was real. I made myself believe that he wasn't just an experienced man but someone meant for me, someone I could love without worrying about tomorrow. But that love was like a fire that only burned brightly in the dark, a world that only existed when no one was watching. And when the harsh light of reality shone upon it, I realized everything had only been an illusion, a beautiful dream that could never become real. But then, everything changed when I found out I was pregnant. It wasn't planned, it wasn't something I had hoped for. I had always been careful, always calculated every step, but ironically, fate has its own way of leading us astray. When the pregnancy test showed 2 red lines, a shockwave coursed through my entire body. My fingers trembled, my eyes fixated on the result as if staring at it long enough could make it change. My heart tightened painfully in my chest, my breath grew unsteady, and a storm of emotions surged through me, ones I couldn't even name. I tested again, then again. But no matter how many times I repeated it, the truth remained unshaken before me. I should have been terrified. I should have been desperate. But strangely, amid the chaos of emotions, a gentle happiness crept into my heart. A strange feeling, like a tiny glimmer of light piercing through the dark night. Inside me, a small life was forming. A piece of both him and me. I placed my hand on my stomach, silently feeling the miracle growing within me. In that moment, I forgot about all the barriers, forgot the cruel reality that he would never truly be mine. The world could turn its back on me, but I still had something that belonged to me, a tiny life, a sprout of love I had once believed in. I never intended to use this child to bind him. I never expected him to leave his family for me. But a part of me, the weakest, most naive part, still secretly hoped. I wondered, if he knew I was pregnant, would he look at me differently? Maybe that moment would make him realize I wasn't just a fleeting lover, but the mother of his child. Maybe he would want to protect me, to keep me by his side, to build something real with me. Maybe. But deep down, I knew that would never happen. He would never see this the way I did. To me, this baby was a miracle, a gift. But to him, it was nothing more than a problem, a mistake. And the harshest truth of all was, I had never had a place in his life. When I told him I was carrying his child, I had waited for something, a moment of hesitation, a silent pause, a flicker of responsibility. But no! Without the slightest doubt, he uttered those cruel words. You cannot keep the baby. Just 5 short words, yet they cut through me like a blade. Cold. Absolute. Without a trace of emotion. It felt as though someone had squeezed my heart until it shattered. Without a second of hesitation, without a single moment of doubt, he erased everything, as if the tiny life inside me was nothing more than an error that needed to be erased. I should have seen this coming. I should have never expected anything more from a man who always put his own interests and image above everything else. But no matter how prepared I was, nothing could stop my heart from breaking when I heard him say those words. But he didn't stop there. He turned this into a transaction, cold and ruthless, like a business deal. He offered to cover all expenses, planning a luxurious weekend getaway in a remote location, as if an extravagant vacation could soothe the torment raging inside me. As if a 5-star hotel could replace the life growing within me. Not only that, in exchange for my agreement, he promised me a special gift, something he thought could ease my pain. But how could it? What gift could ever replace a life? What vacation could ever mend the heartbreak of being forced to give up the child I had yet to hold in my arms? He called this the only solution. He didn't want another child. He couldn't publicly acknowledge an illegitimate child. He had to maintain the image of the perfect husband in everyone's eyes. And me? I was just a problem that needed to be dealt with in silence. I should have resisted. I should have screamed at him that this child was not a mistake. But I did nothing. I accepted it. Not because I wanted to, but because I didn't know what else I could do. I was too exhausted to fight. And so, we planned everything in secret. That night, he would come pick me up, take me out of town, to some unfamiliar place where everything would be handled quickly, just the way he wanted it. But the moment I closed my suitcase and stood in the silence of my room, a wave of unease suddenly crashed over me, tightening around my chest. I looked around, the cold walls, the dim yellow light, my own reflection in the window, small, alone, and deeply wounded. Memories overlapped, sweet promises that had turned to dust, passionate moments now leaving only a bitter aftertaste. I had let him decide my fate for too long. But this time, I wouldn't let that happen. I gripped my suitcase tightly, as if holding on to the last bit of strength left in me. Without waiting for him, I rushed out of my apartment. The night air was freezing, but I didn't shiver, because I knew I was stepping out of his shadow, leaving behind the path he had laid out for me. I found a nearby hotel and shut the door behind me. This unfamiliar room wasn't home, but for the first time in months, I felt like I could finally breathe. I picked up my phone and sent him one last message. You don't need to come anymore. I won't contact you again. I will never mention you as the father of this child, nor will I demand anything from you. Just one thing, leave me alone. Then, I turned off my phone. The screen went dark, just like the past I had finally closed the door on. I didn't know where I was headed, and the future had never seemed so uncertain. But for the first time, I was no longer under his control. I would find myself again, even if it meant starting from nothing. At first, he used sweet, gentle, and intoxicating words to persuade me to do as he wished. But when I refused to give in, his demeanor changed completely. He immediately turned to cruel words, even threatening that I should never dare to contact him or show up at his doorstep again. Now, my child is 2 years old. Life has thrown unexpected challenges our way, but we have always strived to overcome them, living fully and independently. I have kept my promise, never mentioning him as the father, never demanding a single penny in child support. By doing so, I believe we are building our own life, proving our strength and independence despite all the hardships. Unexpectedly, his wife, who is now his ex-wife, reached out to me on social media. She wanted to have a conversation, and when I responded, she told me that 6 months ago, after discovering my existence, she decided to divorce him. What shocked me even more was her proposal. She hoped that her children could have the opportunity to know their half-sibling, and she wanted my child to meet their biological brothers and sisters. While this request sounded strange and unexpected, it opened a new perspective on the complexities of family relationships that I had never considered before. At this moment, I haven't responded to her message. I don't know how to handle this situation, how to reply to her in the right way. Deep down, I wonder if I would be selfish to deny my child the chance to know their siblings if her invitation truly came from a sincere heart. It's hard to imagine because if I were in her position, knowing my husband had a child outside of our marriage, I don't think I could easily have such thoughts. Looking back at everything I've been through, I realize that love cannot exist when built on lies and selfishness. I once believed I was strong enough to control my emotions, but in the end, I let my heart lead me into a relationship that was doomed from the start. That blindness made me lose myself, but from that pain, I have found myself again. The greatest lesson I've learned is that no one can decide my life except me. I once let others manipulate my emotions, let sweet words cloud my judgment, but now I understand that real love is not about dependence, it's about respect and companionship. A man who truly loves you would never force you into choices that benefit him while disregarding your feelings. I've also learned that sometimes, having the courage to walk away is more important than trying to hold on. Letting go isn't always a failure, it can be the strongest act of self-preservation. I don't regret loving him, but I will never let myself fall into this situation again. Now, I move forward with the scars of my past, but also with a stronger heart. I am no longer the weak girl I once was. I am a woman who can take control of her own destiny, and that is enough. Love can be beautiful, but if it makes you lose yourself, then it's not the love you deserve. Don't let emotions cloud your judgment, don't let sweet words make you forget your worth. The one who truly loves you will never put you in painful choices, never demand that you sacrifice everything just to maintain an unfair relationship. If you notice signs of deceit, control, or selfishness in a relationship, have the courage to ask yourself, am I truly happy? Am I respecting myself? Don't be afraid to walk alone, because sometimes, solitude is better than being with someone who only brings you pain. Remember, you deserve a love that is genuine, a love that doesn't require you to sacrifice your dignity or future. Love yourself first, cherish what you have, and never be afraid to leave if that's what it takes to find yourself again.